myself, Jared Klein, today on episode 38. Obviously, we have a guest on. We have Scott on today. But we will get into Scott a little bit here. But first off, I want to give some thanks to the audience that comes out and listens. I really appreciate you guys coming out and listening, and it's always awesome to get feedback from the people that listen, whether, my mic was crackly like it has been the past couple times, like I was talking with Scott a little bit before we started recording, or if, sometimes it's good feedback, oh, I loved the guest this week, loved what you talked about. But I always love, hearing what people have to say about it, and I always like seeing when people listen. That's what we want when it comes to this podcast, and the information that's on this podcast, I think, is really valuable week in and week out, and it's awesome to hear and see people getting what I think people should be getting out of the podcast. So awesome. Scott, thank you for coming on today and taking time out of your day. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I appreciate it. I'm excited to do this. It's going to be fun. I know we chatted a little bit beforehand, and I think we already vibe a little bit, so I think this is going to be a good conversation. Yeah,
it should be a really good conversation. I mentioned this a little bit earlier before we kind of recorded in Twitter DMs that I really haven't had like a content creator on. I've really had, graphic designers and primarily within the sports industry, and I was kind of, explaining that I want to get, creative process isn't just for designers. So this will be interesting. I'm super excited for what we're going to talk about today and kind of give new information and a new side of the whole creative realm on the podcast today. So I don't really want to call you the guinea pig, but in a sense, you may be the guinea pig for content creators.
It's all right, man. I don't mind it at all. I like it. That's cool. We're all learning.
Exactly. So yeah, I guess if you want to just give a little intro about yourself to the people that don't know who you are, and then we'll kind of jump into what's on the docket.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Scott Simmons. Most people know me as a photographer and a videographer, but I would kind of venture to call myself now, as I've grown, a creative entrepreneur, because I use those photography and video skills to build businesses for myself or my friends or loved ones or anything like that. So I've been doing that now for almost half a decade, and I've gone from freelance to working with a company back to freelance. So it's been a really interesting journey. I actually went to school to be a stockbroker. And so my plan was to get on Wall Street and be able to sell stocks and make the big bucks. And I got a bunch of feedback from a couple guys who were doing it from before I graduated university, who said, if you don't love money, and if money's not your thing, then I wouldn't get into this. So that kind of triggered me into kind of exploring new ventures. A fast-forwarded version, after graduating, I actually sold private airplanes. So I was a aircraft salesman in the state of Texas for a company called Textron Aviation. I sold Cessna jets and Beechcraft turboprops in the range of $2.5 to $25 million. So that was a really interesting component of learning who I am as a salesperson. Fast forward, I learned, again, money was not the driver. You can make a lot of money in that business, but it was just not something for me. And I was traveling a lot, and I didn't want to travel alone necessarily. I grew up with a family who had a dad was a traveling salesman. So being with my girlfriend right now, I wanted to travel with her instead of without. So that kind of pivoted us into what can I do? And I've always wanted to explore different opportunities, if you will, of how to express myself. I've always been interested in that, but I've never pursued it. Now that I've fully graduated college, been on my own, had a little bit of money, had the opportunity to jump ship and try out photography and videography, and it kind of just snowballed from there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a very interesting kind of like direction. Like you were in like to aviation sales. I was not expecting that. That was insane.
Most people don't. So I graduated college. I mean, I don't know what your listener base is like, but when I was in college looking for a job, I still didn't know who I am or who I was or what I wanted to do. So I just looked for an opportunity to do a rotational program. So Textron, the company, was offering a 1-year rotational program that led to a sales job if you interviewed and did well. So I got to rotate through 4 different areas of the company. It was like customer service, sales, marketing, and something else. But I started to learn that I was really good at back-end and Salesforce, and they actually put me on the Salesforce team for a little bit. Salesforce, not as in like selling, but as the software. So all the data analytics and that kind of stuff, it really interested me a lot. So as I started to learn that more, I thought, man, I don't know if I want to do the sales thing, but I don't want to let up the opportunity of cash. So I followed the cash, and when I did that, it moved me to Austin, where I'm at now, and it's a beautiful city, and I don't see myself leaving here very soon by any means. But from there, as I was doing it, I recognized that I was following the footsteps of my dad, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just tried to remember as a child, like, I wish I could spend more time with him. I wish I could do these things. And I didn't want to have that same experience for my family. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what, I mean, I bought a camera for Savannah. Savannah's my girlfriend, because she was a makeup artist at the time, and she wanted to do YouTube tutorials on, the makeup and talking heads or whatever. And so I bought it, and she did it once. She hated editing. She thought it was horrible. And she said, I never want to do this again. So the camera started collecting dust. It was a Panasonic G85. And I thought, man, I might as well just sell this. I could probably get $1,000 from it at the time, or a couple hundred, whatever. But I decided to pick it up and film a buddy of mine working out, who was like a CrossFitter. And since I filmed that, he was like, you're pretty natural at this. And I thought, no, there's no way. And I caught a couple DMs when the video went public about how much I charge. And that just kind of, like I said, went from there. Mm-hmm. So it is an interesting dynamic, but I think it's something that sets me apart from what a lot of creative freelancers don't know a lot of the business side of things, or don't have the experience of, cold calling or selling, or even selling to people who were worth $1 billion. I'm pretty unique in that experience, and I'm really grateful for it. But I think that's something we all should learn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's kind of jump into, the whole content side of thing, right?
Yeah.
Talk about, I mean, obviously you can kind of, shameless plug anything you want, like your YouTube channel. And obviously, actually I'll do this to begin. So for the viewers, all of Scott's socials will be down below. We'll probably talk about a handful of everything that's mentioned down there, but everything about Scott on the social side of things, links wise, will be down below. So if you're interested, go down there. I'll probably mention this at the end of the podcast anyways, because I'll forget I'm doing it now. But let's get into, content creation. So obviously you talked about how you got into it.
Yep.
How are things going currently? Where do you see yourself now to, also where do you see yourself in the space, in a couple years? Where's your direction going? If you want to give an intro about your YouTube channel, you probably can too. So,
well, okay. So yeah, I have a YouTube channel, and it's
was low. What I asked you was kind of loaded there. So
yeah,
there are a couple things.
You're good. You're good. So yeah, I do make content for myself, but that is not where it all started. So yeah, I have a YouTube channel now, and that's kind of the direction. So I'll skip around a little bit here, but you asked what the goal is. So the goal right now is to grow the YouTube channel, kind of expand my audience as a whole as a creative professional, and then be able to help other people do the same thing. I was a salesman, like I just explained. And so a camera essentially unlocked so much for me, and it helped me understand that there's a lot more to just the normal 9-to-5 traditional school route. And as many people, nowadays it's less common to discuss. But me being 30, that was like I was in that time period of where, like, how do you want to do this? So it unlocked a ton for me. And yes, so the goal is to grow the YouTube channel, potentially maybe get into a podcast and that kind of stuff. But just at the end, helping others use a camera to build whatever they're trying to build. I build a few different things. I'm not just a photographer, like I mentioned. I own a clothing brand. My girl and I are building a fitness app that should launch at the end of the month. Let's see what else. I'm trying to get into newsletters and blogs about creativity and like photography and videography mainly, and then expanding from there. That's kind of the goal. I have a bunch of failed businesses that I tried before, so it's really just, again, honing in who I want to be. But how I got it, how things kind of evolved, and how I made a career out of this, I guess, is when I went freelance after a few videos, and I learned some skills, picked up some skills all from YouTube. Nobody taught me this. And then as I started to share more on social media and Instagram and things like that, I got hit up in DMs by a guy named Don Micavone. He is the owner of Raw Nutrition and Revive MD, 2 supplement companies. And he asked me if I was interested in basically moving to Florida and helping him build brands. So I said, yes. We moved to Florida. That was 2 years ago now. And I was probably the second or third employee at the time. And we just kind of rolled from there. And so, answer your loaded question in a sense. That's where I learned almost everything. I knew the technical skills, right? And then I know this podcast is a lot about the creative process, but I didn't have a creative process, right? So the being in a company, kind of like what you do now too, taught me and forced me to have a creative process around building a business and a brand and selling a product, whether that product is supplements or whatever we were trying to do. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but.
No, you kind of developed things, kind of naturally through what you were doing, and then it kind of helped you, develop your whole, I guess, no pun intended, but your process on, how you come up with things, how you do things, everything like that when it comes to.
I mean, if you break it down a little bit more, I mean, if you think about how being what it means to be creative, this too. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to. I knew how to shoot product photography based on YouTube, but I didn't know how to do it based on practical work. Mm-hmm. So it taught me how to storyboard, how to come up with different ideas, how to test things, how to iterate, and how to shoot and publish and all that kind of stuff. So it's just really, being in a company helped me a ton, honestly, and I'm super grateful for that opportunity. And it also taught me a lot about building a business, because that's not the only, like I said, photography and video is not the only thing I want to do. The goal is to use those skills to build businesses thereafter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I kind of reached out to you about your YouTube channel recently.
Yep.
Asking about that video that
the desk video.
That desk video that just went crazy, and it's still every time I brush over it or whatever, whenever I'm browsing, it's always in my recommended still, which is hysterical. And it keeps getting more and more views. What is it at? What is it at now?
It's between 110 to 120,000.
Oh my goodness.
For context, for people listening, I had about 400 subs when that video launched, and it took me to 1,100 subs and over 100,000 views in one video. I can anticipate your question, but go ahead and ask.
Well, actually, I was just wondering, obviously, you made the video, so you had, process however you scripted it, however you wanted to kind of go out making the video, but no one ever expects, especially with the state the channel was in before you posted the video, no one expects a video like that to
get 100,000 views.
Yeah. So it's when it comes to YouTube, I guess, was there anything special that you considered when it came to, developing that video, or is it just how the algorithm kind of pushed it out and just stayed in recommended, and, however,
I think
was
it's
there anything
both.
Special?
I think it's both. So I use a platform called TubeBuddy. There's also vidIQ, but they help you. For those who don't know what it is, they help you understand the SEO score of your titles, your videos, and the descriptions within your videos. So it's basically similar to blogging, where you see where you potentially may rank when it comes to YouTube search and YouTube content. So I use, when I was starting the YouTube channel and starting to get a little more serious about it, I use Google Trends and I use TubeBuddy to cross-reference each other. And I'm already in the photography, video, and tech space in a way. So I thought, okay, the first video I'm going to make is definitely what's in my camera bag. Mm-hmm. I know we're talking about the desk video, but it kind of all works together. Mm-hmm. Made that video with maybe less than 100 subs, maybe less than 200 subs. And it started to get a lot of views and ended up getting over 1,000. I thought, oh, this is cool. So I think I made, let me check. I'll pull this up really quick. Mm-hmm. I made another video I did the photography studio at my house. That was my first video. That did well. And I thought, okay, so I'm teaching people about products. That's interesting. So I did a what's in my camera bag, because this is an easy one. And again, that video did well. So I thought, all right, I'm on to something. And then I did a tutorial on Lightroom and how to edit photos. And that video in comparison would have quote unquote flopped. Mm-hmm. It didn't do well. It didn't even reach 1,000 views. And it's still a slow grow, maybe one view a day. So I took that and I went, okay, what's different here? And I thought, well, I'm not teaching about tech. So there's desk videos. I'm changing my desk right now anyway. Let me try to teach about tech. And so what I learned from that and the process that we're talking about is I had 2 videos that were talking about tech, lighting, setup, things for a home studio, the tech in my camera bag, and then I did a tutorial. Okay, those 2 previously worked. Let me do another tech video, but let's talk about the desk. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I think that logically it told me if I talked about those things, it would do as well, if not close to as well as the first 2 videos. Mm-hmm. I think that was the first part to understanding that this is going to be a successful video. I wasn't even worried about it, but I had no idea that it would pick up. So from that point on, the rest is algorithm push. I would say the biggest driver is the browse feature, is what the stats say. And after that, it just kind of kept going. I think I searched one time. I was number one on the search. If you looked up like desk setups for 2023, I was the first at the top for like a couple weeks, which so that obviously helps, right?
Yes, it does.
But so actually, I'm going to use the same logic here, and I made another video on how to organize your day with productivity and what I use every day. And again, in comparison, it quote unquote flopped. So in theory, if I do another tech video next, it should do well. But I don't know.
It
That's
should.
just, yeah, it should. But so it's a combination of understanding what videos have done well, and I'm going to dive in deeper and test the theory versus the YouTube algorithm.
So I guess while we're here on this YouTube thing, is it like how much of it is? I guess how much of a video success is thought out and like the SEO, checking and everything like that. How much is the success due to that, or how much of the success is due to luck? Like, is it kind of 50-50, or is it just like if your video pops, that's kind of what it is?
I would say from my experience, my data is too green to know that answer.
That's
but
true.
TubeBuddy allows you, and vidIQ does the same thing. You can actually see other people's channels. Like if I went on your podcast channel, I could see your SEO scores. And I've seen creators, videographers and filmmakers specifically, who make similar videos who have horrible SEO scores, but the videos do really well. So I don't know, but based on the fact that I think the SEO scores help a new YouTuber like myself, right? They help prime you to have a successful video. I don't think that is the answer, but I do think that is a checkpoint and a variable that allows you at the beginning to understand what you should make content about. That's how I use it. I think, okay, do I want to make content about a desk? Well, I kind of do and I kind of don't. Does it score well? If it does, then I'm going to make the video. At least that gets me out of the gate, and that opens me up to new audiences. That's kind of my plan. Right. I think the rest, therefore, after is luck, in a sense. I think the guys who do have horrible SEO scores still do well on their videos. So I don't think SEO is the only answer. I don't think that's the only variable that can make a successful video.
So it's like treated as a tool, it's
correct.
Treated as a tool to kind of aid you in a direction to where, could put you in the position for a video to.
Yeah. I mean, look, when I have 50,000 subs, I don't think I need to use it anymore.
Right. Because you've developed that audience.
Correct. So I think by that time, the data of my own videos should show me what the audience wants to watch. I think when you have a buddy of mine, his name's Kofi Yaboa. He's a filmmaker. I hope I said his last name right, but his name's Kofi. Anyway, he's in Canada, and he makes videos about film, like legit filmmaking. He uses the FX6 and like commercial filmmaking rather than just like a videographer. And he leaned into making videos all about the FX6, and they were getting, 1,000 views or so, which is not great for his sub count necessarily. It's not breaking, numbers. And he's not excited. He's not losing his mind over it. And then one video hits 50,000 views as he continues. So I think what he did is he can take the couple hundred videos that he's made, assess the data now, and understand what video is going to drive him the most traffic. I don't think he needs to use a service like TubeBuddy. He might use it. I have no idea. To get him off the ground. I think I just want to use it to get me off the ground.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Like I think this may be like from the outside. Well, it is 100% from the outside looking in. Like the confidence that content creators now have when they're first starting compared to like even a couple years ago when it comes to like YouTube. The amount of tools, the amount of things that you can like, the amount of things that are even on the platform that you can look at for help when it comes to, creating videos for, searchability and being able to get things recommended is just insane now. Like go back as little as, well, granted, how long has YouTube been around? Maybe 20 years?
Oh shit, bro. I don't know. I was just looking at this. It's like how it used to be a dating website and now it's evolved into a video website and stuff like that. Yeah. We'll say 20 years for a good guess.
But like even just to go back, 5 years, everything, 5 years ago was, I don't want to say it was like strictly luck, but like it took a lot to grow back then, and you almost had to have like connections to someone who was big that would, you know, collab with you or, you know, something like that, so you could somehow appear and be able to take parts of audiences and attribute, like, gain audience from other people's audience, rather than now you can pretty much make an audience out of thin air because of all these, you know, different types of things you can consider from the jump, rather than, you know, going through. Obviously, you have to go through trial and error to begin with, but now the process is just, I don't really want to say easier, but, you know, in a sense, that's kind of what it is. It's a little bit easier to kind of dive into content creation now.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, there's an audience for everything. That's kind of how I look at it. I was researching. I'm really heavily researching a newsletter right now and how to succeed on the newsletter. And this guy, I forgot his name, but he's like an insurance agent. He made a newsletter about birds because he loves birds. And it's the funniest thing to think about. But anyway, he transitioned that newsletter into a YouTube channel, and the dude quit his insurance agency job and makes like 3 times the income on a newsletter and a YouTube channel about just birds in his backyard. So to your point, you can make an audience about anything, and we have everything we need to succeed on YouTube right now. I mean, there's so many people teaching about how to make successful YouTube channels, how to rank, how to get views, how to do this and that and this. And it's so easy to get. I say easy. The knowledge is there.
Right.
But I think what we have to understand is that so is the competition now. So like, yes, it was harder to get views back then, but I still think it's really hard to build an audience right now. Because how many guys do you know are graphic designers? Because you're in the world, right? How many people do I know that are videographers and filmmakers? I mean, how many Peter McKinnons? I know you know who that is, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How many Peter McKinnon? Exactly. How many of him are there now versus when he was just started, or Casey Neistats or Mr. Beasts? So the competition is higher. I don't think that makes it impossible to succeed. No way. But I do think that it's just, we have the tools now. So I think you're spot on with that.
I guess I feel like when it comes to, you know, a platform like YouTube, how many people just stick to one creator though?
I mean, I try to look at everything like myself. I don't stick to one creator at all.
Yeah.
You know, so I can imagine I sub to probably 25 different filmmaking and photography YouTubers, mainly because I got tired of the Peter McKinnon. Not necessarily because of him as a person. I think he's hilarious and great to watch, but I wanted to learn something different. So I got into filmmaking YouTubers because I want to start transitioning what I want into filmmaking. So you start to identify who you are and what you want. I don't want to be just a photographer. I would like to get into filmmaking and make a documentary. I would like to use that and build a clothing brand like I am now. So it's just trying to hone in and find who you are too.
Right, for sure. So I guess when it comes to your YouTube channel, we talked about, you know, a little bit of like what you're thinking about when it comes to videos and everything. But like when it comes to starting, you know, concepting for a video idea, you know, whether it's starting at scripting and then ending with, you know, obviously the finished product, what's your process when it comes to that whole thing?
So I use a software called Notion. A lot of people use it, basically just a project management tool. And the first thing I do is I try to not look, I didn't used to do this, but I try to not look at any YouTube videos or any Instagram accounts or any other people doing content right now, because I want my first initial thought to be the thought. So I'll kind of I'll shut my computer down, I'll listen to some music, and I'll look around my office and think about things I've done in the past, or look at past work that I've done. And then what can I make a video out about, something like that. And then I'll jot down those ideas. So I might have like 65 different ideas or whatever. I'll just brain dump essentially. And then from there, I use TubeBuddy because, again, getting off the ground, it's a good resource to start with. And I'll start seeing where that may rank or may potentially rank it from an SEO perspective. And after that, I then double check myself on Google Trends. And then after that, I triple check myself by searching YouTube and seeing what's around. So I kind of analyze it at different levels to see what is that content already being served. Let's say, for example, the desk video. How many desk videos are there? I mean, you could probably find 500, right? But why is that desk video being watched? Because there's some uniqueness to each desk, because the person, like your setup is different than mine because it serves different purposes for you, right? We all might like certain things in the way like a desk looks or the color scheme or whatever, but you have things on your desk that you use that I might not ever need to use. So there's some personality. So then I try to think of it, how can I spin in personality? So that's the ideation piece. And then from there, I'll continue to drill down on Notion. I actually purchased a template from a guy who kills it on Notion, Thomas Frank. And he breaks down in there, you have your thumbnail section, your title section, your B-roll section, and I kind of just fill those out. So I'll think of the thumbnail first because that's just a good practice from what I've at least researched, because the thumbnail is what gets people to click. And then the titles are based on that SEO from TubeBuddy. And then the B-roll shots are corresponded to a script. So I script first. I actually film talking head first, and then I do B-roll, because I don't know when I'm doing talking head and I'm filming that moment. Sometimes I'll say things off the cuff, or I'm sure you've done this plenty of times in a podcast where you have a plan and you have a goal, right? But you go off into some tangent, which is actually better than your original goal was. So I'll make the script and I'll talk about it. And the script is a loosely used term. It's just bullet points. I don't ever read. Some guys I know use teleprompters. I have not gotten to that point, nor do I want to get to that point, but I might. Who knows? And then from there, I'll put it into Premiere. I'll cut it up, and I'll see, okay, now when I'm listening to it, I'll jot down the B-roll that I want that corresponds with those shots. I didn't do that before, and now that I've kind of continued to make videos, that seems to be the best way right now for me. It may change, and honestly, I'm assuming it will. I think that it's silly not for us to continue to iterate to try to improve. But that's the process right now.
Okay. If you don't mind, you mentioned the term talking head. Could you just explain for people listening that don't know what that means?
Sure. I keep forgetting this is a graphic design world. Talking head, or A-roll, is basically just when you sit down and film yourself talking about the subject or topic or whatever you're talking about. So like right now, you and me, it's like essentially a podcast. Right. You just talk to the camera and you communicate what you're trying to get across.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted some explanation.
You're good.
You know
what it is.
I was familiar with the term, but just in case, people didn't know. And sometimes, audio may get mixed up. They don't hear something. So just a little bit of explanation. But yeah, so I don't know. Like, I feel like whenever I thought about YouTube, it was, do people actually plan, or do they just sit down and record? Because, granted, a lot of the content that I started out watching was like gaming content, and like, that's never really, the most planned out part of a gaming content that I used to watch was, what game are we playing? What's going to be the subject of the video? Are we just playing to play, or are we doing something? And that was it. And then whatever happened after the idea, that was it. To where now content is, to an extent, the content that I'm watching is a lot more informative. So there has to be a little bit more planning and everything that goes into that. So the whole process of video making and content creation is a polar opposite to when I first started consuming content. The production, what percentage of like a YouTube video do you think, like, throughout the whole process, if you're watching a video, what percentage of like your videos is production and like pre-recording and pre-everything?
All of it.
Yeah. I was figuring you were going to say that.
I think if you're not doing that now, I mean, and MKBHD, who's a tech YouTuber who reviews like phones and tech now, is a good example. He has a full team in making his YouTube content. I mean, he's got several million subs, but that's a great example of understanding where you are doing it by yourself in your home, in your living room or your bedroom, and then you've evolved into owning a studio, and you have a studio production team helping you make YouTube videos. I mean, if you want to stand out and you want to take it full time and you want to take it seriously and you want to make a full-time living off of this thing, then you have to treat it that way. Obviously there are some people who can succeed no matter what, but at the end of the day, I got told this by a friend of mine, and I agree with him. This is a job, and this is a job that I don't want to give up. I don't want to be going back to selling airplanes. I don't want to be, working at UPS like I used to. I don't want to do any of those things. I want to keep doing this. So you have to treat it with the respect of, how can I do the best job possible? And you'd be surprised if you did some digging on like filmmaking YouTubers specifically, or like Peter McKinnon types. And I don't know if he scripts his videos. It doesn't seem like it, but he could. And how much that
I bet he does kind of similar to what you were mentioning, like bullet
Yeah.
points, because his content is like a lot of like off the cuff talking. Like I feel like he's so knowledgeable in what he's talking about. He
Sure.
knows if there's some topic or some aspect of the content that he's talking about, he can talk about it and deliver it naturally.
Yeah.
To where he has a lot of the quirkiness of his personality that
Yeah.
I feel like he wants to keep in. So
Yeah, I agree. So I think the word scripting is maybe a unique or a loosely used term. Scripting could be bullet points, or scripting could be reading for word.
right.
And there are some tech YouTubers who read word for word. I know them. And others like myself will just have bullet points because I want it to feel personal. I don't want it to feel like I'm reading off of a prompt. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I do think you'd be surprised how many people are actually pre-planning and pre-designing their videos before they get published.
Mm-hmm. What's the I'm hearing this now, but is it thumbnail first or title first? Because a lot of people say title and thumbnail first, and then concept the video after that. Or I guess when it comes to that whole notion of things, what's your opinion?
From my lens right now, at my subscriber count at 1,000 subs, I try to make the title first, because my goal is to use TubeBuddy to drive SEO, and then I will make 3 to 5 thumbnails beforehand, or at least have a vision of them or a storyboard of them, and then I'll make the video. And if the video doesn't perform, and performing is so hard because my data set is so small, but if the video if I don't think it's performing, I'll switch the thumbnail. I switched the thumbnail on my last video 3 times. And it was just small tweaks, but I switched it several times because I didn't even feel like I would click on that video. So in the beginning, I think it's important to understand, would you click on your own video? And if not, why? And then make a change. But I start with title, then I do thumbnail, then I do video then I create the video.
So obviously being a one-man team, you have to know, several different facets of the creative realm, right? Yep. Whether it's video and design or, video, motion design, editing, whatever. So I guess, do you outsource anything that you do on your channel? Like, do you have anyone working with you to do, thumbnails or video editing at all by chance? No. So you do it all yourself.
Correct.
I guess when it comes to that, for people looking to start, how important do you think that whole aspect of, developing more than one skill is?
I think it's vital. I mean, a friend of mine, I'm helping him build his YouTube channel and his podcast up right now, and he wants a certain volume of content, specifically short form content. And I don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to pump out 7 pieces of short form content, plus a YouTube video, plus a podcast, plus my own YouTube videos, plus the companies I try to run. You know what I mean? You get the point. Right. I don't have the capacity to do that for a 30-second clip. So he has to outsource that. So you have to do it when it makes sense, but you also have to do it when you're financially capable. I don't want to spend the financial resources I have right now on that. It doesn't make sense. I'm not returning that much on YouTube anyway. So yes, it's extremely important from the concept of if it makes sense, but also it helps you learn what to do. And I'm not a graphic designer at all by any means. Your skill is way beyond mine, but I know enough to make a thumbnail. I know enough to make an Instagram advertising story. I know enough about, what skills can you learn to help you succeed. And then once you're financially ready, I think that's when you can outsource. And I think that's when it makes sense. I don't think you need to outsource a thumbnail, but some like Mr. Beast does, but he's Mr. Beast.
He could outsource everything if he wanted
to. Right.
Which he probably does.
Yeah, true. I would say it's important. I mean, if you want to learn how to do anything and you want to learn the ins and outs and you're interested in how to succeed, it's definitely important. And then on the flip side is when you're ready to delegate, understand when you're ready to delegate. I think that's also extremely important, and that's hard to do. I don't know if you've gotten to that point at all ever yet, but for me, delegation is very hard because I'm a big control freak and I want to control every aspect of my image, especially when it comes to YouTube specifically. And so delegation can be hard, but it's definitely important to reach the next level thereafter.
I even think if you take the time to learn those other tools and the other skills to create content, once you start delegating, you have more of a sense of understanding of
Correct.
How things should go, and basically even the software your people that you're hiring out are using, if they're having problems or if you have suggestions, they'll know that it's coming from a person that has lived what they're doing and has done what they're doing. So
totally agree.
it's not like, the worst thing is to get advice and get direction from someone who hasn't experienced what you are doing. And that's the worst thing.
It's like a client who comes to you and says, you could just change this color, right? I'm guessing.
And it's like, with no understanding. So I guess when it does come to delegation, you'll be able to have that, to have that information and have that experience in the things that you are delegating. So your feedback and your advice will, be coming from experience rather than arrogance.
Well, yeah, true. You're also building invaluable skills in the sense that you could sell those skills. Let's say you didn't know you were good at design or video editing or whatever, and you become good enough at it, and somebody hits you up and you're like, I edit my own videos, and they're looking for an editor. You can do it for them. You get a little side cash to help you continue to funnel and fuel what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. So now probably I think maybe the toughest thing of content creation coming down to ideas and getting ideas and keeping those ideas flowing so the original content stays. You already mentioned you use Notion and you just mind dump sometimes, and that's, I feel like that's a very common thing. You just, what am I going to make a video on? Let's just drop it down on a notepad or however you want to take notes, right?
Yep.
When it comes to, I guess in the creative space, it's usually called creative block or something along those lines. That's usually how it's referenced. But when it comes to that whole aspect of content creation, how do you attack that? What's your best methods of operation when it comes to not being able to think of ideas or, whatever the case may be?
I mean, that's a question that I think we're all going to continue to deal with for the rest of our lives as creatives. I don't think that goes away.
Never does.
I thought at one point in my attempt to make a creative career, which is now we're getting there, but I thought that just eventually it happens. It's there.
Right.
And it's not. And I think that we all deal with it. So I think the best way to overcome it is to do things like change your environment. And I don't mean that in the sense of necessarily your space. So like for me, yes, getting out of my office and going to a coffee shop, that might help, but changing the environment of which you consume. So, if I watch a bunch of Peter McKinnon type photography videos, I'm only seeing that and I'm only aware of that. Therefore, I should change. Maybe I should watch filmmaking videos. Maybe I should watch videos on how to make movies back in the 80s or 90s, or maybe I should read books on how to think of creative process. Anyway, changing your mental scope and your environment there is vital, I think, to help at least you recognize, this has helped me, that other people go through the similar things and then what strategies they've used to try to come out of it. And then you kind of make a mishmash of your own. So for me, changing the environment is a huge component. If I am stuck, I'll read a book on trying to, a skill I'm trying to learn, or I'll go totally left field and I'll go to graphic design content and I'll watch it purely for the intention of not trying to learn how to make a logo, but trying to learn their process of making a logo, or how Mr. Beast makes a video. I don't care about the Mr. Beast videos at all, but I'll watch a shitload of his content because I want to see the pacing. I want to see the movement. I want to see how bright and how dark and what things he uses at certain times and that kind of stuff. So I think what you consume, whether it's visual, audio, or reading, is really important to get you out of that space.
Yeah, I don't know. Creative block has got to be one of the worst things to deal with when you can't when you can't knock it, when it's just always there.
Yeah.
You just can't, no matter how hard you try, it's just, you're just turning the wheels in your head. And it's just like,
yeah.
And when you do come up with an idea or like you do come up with something, there's always like that like it's the two, like the angel and devil, whatever, like on your shoulders. It's like, oh, it looks good, but that idea actually fucking sucks. You should not do that. So
yeah, what's helped me a ton, honestly, is just doing it and putting out that shitty piece of content. There's a lot of people talking. I say a lot. I've seen a few guys talk about it now, or in the sense of just put it out there, even if it sucks, because it's just going to get you through. You need to get through it. Who cares? No one's going to judge you. And if they do, they don't matter. So just putting out that piece of content, whether it's a design, whether it's a blog, whether it's a video, whether it's a photo, and getting through it, I think is the hardest part. And then after you get through it, it's Mel Robbins. She's a professional speaker. She talks about I don't know what rule she calls it. I think she calls it 3-2-1 rule maybe, or something. But she basically says, she counts, it's the 5-second rule. I don't know, whatever. She counts down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then she just does it. It's a similar concept as in many books of like just taking action. But essentially the concept is take a couple seconds, recognize the moment, and then just do it no matter what. And then once you do it, you're going to realize that it wasn't that scary, it wasn't that bad of an idea, or wasn't that awful to do in the first place, and you'll just kind of make it happen.
So I'm curious how all of this applies into the other things that you run, specifically your clothing company. I want to talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah.
My guess is that you handle most of the creative direction when it comes to your clothing company and everything like that, or am I wrong in assuming?
Yeah, so I have a partner, and that actually, his name's Jason. Jason started it originally, but Jason's bandwidth is only so high, and he trusts me from a branding perspective. So I am I'm an owner, but we're just two of us. Okay. So we initially kind of delegate. I let him do designs because I want the brand to stay his still. I don't own a majority. He still owns majority. So, but when it comes to concepts, he still reaches out to me. He still tries to figure it out, get some feedback. And then when it comes to creative in the sense of photography, video, web design, all that kind of stuff, that's basically me. So what you're trying to dig for?
Yeah, I was just curious on like how, I guess when it comes to everything that you're learning on the creative side, how it flows into like the whole process of planning and that whole aspect of things, because that's huge when it comes to drops or trends or whatever you're trying to follow when it comes to clothing. You guys are in the fitness space, right? Is that really where you guys kind of land, or is it just streetwear?
It's funny you say that. I love I love when people don't know about the brand as much, and then I'm hearing what they think the brand is about. Because I would just say streetwear right now, but I wouldn't say that we're not fitness either, because we do promote a lot. Jason and I are from the fitness space. That's kind of where I built my experience, and so that's just who our audience is. That's who supports us. But from the creative process, it is really similar. So you have your idea. Let's say we have a drop, and that drop comes around a specific type of campaign that could be usually it's seasonal for us when it comes to clothes. So we start with what kind of clothes? Sweaters, hoodies, hats, t-shirts, shorts, pants, whatever. Right. And then from there, Jay plays a little bit of the design component. And then after we do that and some sampling, and then we make a campaign around that. And so like our last campaign, we specifically branded it geared towards skateboarding. And so we went to a skate park. We had the concept, the photo shoot in play. Then we had some ideas for video. That one is way more off the cuff, honestly, for me than YouTube is, because clothing is about speed from what I'm learning. And especially fast, it's called fast fashion. When you're competing with guys like Young LA, there's other brands called Civil Regime and Iron Will. Those people they have the cash. We don't have the cash. So when we just need to go as fast as we can, that's feasible. And so the content is less important. So I have to let go a little bit of the perfectionism that I want to put into something like a YouTube video. Like you said, that creative block, the angel on your shoulder, the devil on your shoulder, the devil's going, man, that photo is terrible. But at the end of the day, it's different. We're selling a product. We're not trying to sell ourselves from a video or a design or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I just wanted to kind of like round out the podcast on that whole aspect of things, because I feel like, like you mentioned it, fast fashion, it's a little bit more different of a direction when it comes to content. A little bit more. I mean, yes, you're obviously going to shoot photos. You're going to set up a photo shoot and make things, look nice and pretty, because you have to present the product in a certain way. But when it comes to creating content around that, I was wondering how everything was going to kind of flow on that side of things when it comes to a different kind of business model. A different kind of. I'm not going to say. Well, I guess I could say a different kind of niche. Rather than. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So niche works, but yeah, I was curious. I wanted to kind of ask that question. Yeah,
I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm learning. I love photo and video. I think it's amazing what you can do and the stories you can tell, and that's the end of the day. That's the goal for me, is telling stories. But I think once you learn those skills, even yourself learning design and getting better at it, I think once you start to understand the side of business a little bit more, you're doing yourself an injustice if you aren't using the skills to enhance something else. So being able to learn the skills from video production on a YouTube channel definitely can correlate to a clothing brand or correlate to a fitness app or whatever you're trying to achieve.
For sure. Well, yeah, man, I feel like I feel like we've kind of hit everything and more based on, what we kind of wanted to talk about today.
Yep.
Again, I'll reach out to you and say thank you for taking the time out of your day. I've said that ample amount of times, but I can't.
You're good, bro. This stuff's fun.
I can't thank the people that come on here enough.
Yeah,
it
man.
Makes for good conversation, and it makes for good connection too. So
I agree.
But yeah, again, I'll mention this for everyone listening. Go down below, check out Scott's socials. Everything related to Scott will be down below that I can link, or that he wants me to link.
You can link whatever you want, man.
So yeah, go down below, check out Scott, check out everything he does. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening to episode 38 of season 3 of the Creative Process Podcast with myself, Jared Klein. And make sure you tell someone that you love them today. All right, we will see you